Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we have some pretty crazy news over here when it comes to Xbox, where it does claim that they want to go and somehow end exclusivity and kind of bring gaming as like an altruistic just collective of where it's just a free fall of games everywhere. Now, we have some pretty crazy statements going on here from Microsoft CEO, talking about the exclusivity, talking about their future plans, but as well as also somewhat of a conflicting thing too as well, because if you guys actually had a chance to go and see out quite a few different other various things that have come out throughout these past few days, such as Xbox and Microsoft trying to go buy a bajillion different companies, it may actually be kind of caught in a little bit of a major big lie, and as well kind of want to go and just kind of talk about this because we're seeing a lot of big conflicting things at the end of the day when it comes to Xbox's goals, motives, and everything else in between. So if you guys will stay tuned, relax, and enjoy, as well make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch room down below in case you guys want to go and follow. We have the Amazon links down below, if everything else too as well down below. And I appreciate you guys all so much for watching. Let's go and dive on into the video itself. So we have a pretty big, powerful statement, and you guys keep on seeing all these big updates when it comes to these big events and this big Xbox court case, where we actually hear something kind of from the big boy, from the Microsoft CEO himself, saying that he actually wants to go and end Xbox exclusives, but is actually somehow blaming Sony for all of this. Now, first and foremost, I'm sure you guys know, it's almost like a necessity in this day and age to have something like a Nintendo or an Xbox or a PlayStation to have their own exclusives. They want to go and make sure that, well, they exist. You want to have a reason to go and sell like the Nintendo. So you have like a Zelda, you have a Mario, you have all these other various games like a Metroid Prime or Pikmin or whatever it might be. But as well, say for PlayStation, you want to go have all your expensive IPs that you spend a lot of money on. And even same thing for Xbox with a Halo or Fables or Forzas or whatever it might be. But crazy enough, the Microsoft CEO himself says he wants to end Xbox exclusives, but is blaming Sony. In an ideal world, there would be no console exclusives, but this is a world full of competition. So Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella says he'd love to get rid of console game exclusives, but is blaming Sony for defining the market and competition. Nadella made the comments as part of a testimony in the FTC versus Microsoft today, which I'm sure you guys have been hearing lots of news on. I hope you guys are liking it and subscribe for it, discussing Microsoft's cloud gaming strategy, internal gaming targets, and much more. When discussing the ideal of Microsoft being focused on software across as many platforms as possible, Nadella was asked about Xbox exclusives. Here's what he said. "If it was up to me, I would love to get rid of the entire exclusives on consoles, so that's just everything, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox. But that's not for me to define, especially as a low-share player in the console market." So they're basically trying to go and say that right now, Xbox is one of these smaller companies. And I would actually kind of agree on this take, like not to kind of drive too much into it, like not too much drama, because if you're Xbox, you want people to buy your console. You're in third place. PlayStation has a way bigger market share, and guess what? If you gave like a Fable, an actual, let's say, everything, Forza, Halo, everything on PlayStation, well, you're kind of giving up the big reason of why you even want to go have an Xbox in the first place. Now, in all honesty, there actually is some kind of schemy stuff they could always do, where in theory, what if they just got rid of the Xbox, or made just more of a one big central kind of cheapo version, thing like an Xbox Series S, or a streamable disc, and maybe have even a combination with PlayStation. Or maybe Xbox will make games, PlayStation goes and hosts them, they have like a really cool revenue share agreement. Now, will that ever happen? Probably not. Microsoft's a bigger company, just wouldn't be in their ego to go do that. Same with Nintendo too as well. Like it kind of seems like they want to go and hold on their own individual market, which I'm totally okay with. Like that's totally fine. That's how it should be. But when I think one of the bigger things I hear is that, well, unless PlayStation does it, which they probably never will, or Nintendo does it, which they probably never will, and Xbox probably doesn't want to do it because they're technically in third place, it's never going to happen. And I think that's okay though, because it does kind of offer different things. Like think like an iPhone or an Android phone. It is still slightly different at the end of the day. It's all slightly changed up a little bit at the end of the day, so it's not the worst. Like, I mean, it makes sense. I understand why that's a thing. Like, I get it. I totally get it. But when I think one of the bigger things out here is that, well, he just doesn't want it. I'm not really sure if they mean this or not, because we keep on hearing all these really big things when it comes to Xbox, where they had a chance to go and consistently buy almost every company. We saw a lot. We saw a lot of acquisition talks. We saw mentions. We saw so many different companies, Sega, Bungie, Niantic, as well as also another like 10 different companies. And they also did just go buy Bethesda to kind of somewhat spite PlayStation in terms of their big internal details, where they're like, hey, you keep on getting these exclusive games, which like Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop. Yeah, let's just go and stop that. And they end up buying the company. So it kind of makes kind of a conflicting feeling because they want to have no exclusives. They like the idea of this. But this is why it's kind of weird, because you could essentially go and have your own fan service almost at any point. Because if you're sitting there and you think, well, yeah, I could go give out all our games like Halo and Forza, but let's not. Let's go blame PlayStation. And just kind of make things look a little bit on the weirder side, because in the internal side, they're literally out here buying out all these games that they possibly can at the end of the day. So it's a very, very intriguing process. Nonetheless, so I kind of want to hear your thoughts on this one too. So they also have a chance to say the dominant player there, aka Sony, has defined the market competition. So they know they're basically using Sony as a somewhat of like a standalone process of being like, hey, Sony, you're the reason why I've got a Wars or Horizons, which is fine. I think that's okay. But they basically keep on calling it out. It's almost like a little bit of virtual signaling, at least in my honest opinion. I'm kind of okay with it though. Xbox wants to go for the Game Pass. If they want to spend their money, they have the right to have their own games. Same with PlayStation. Like, I don't want to have them like kind of pit against each other, but there you go. So he said, basically, yeah, he just tried to say, like, this is just not the world we want to live in. This is not the game I want to have, and it kind of makes sense. Like, I really do think there could be a workaround if they really try to do it, but I think these big companies want to profit on their own market and their shareholders a little bit more than anything else. So Nadella's comment comes a day after it was revealed that Sony's PlayStation chief, Jim Ryan, admitted that Xbox exclusives like Starfield weren't anti-competitive. Ryan also claimed publishers think Xbox Game Pass is value destructive, which I almost want to dive into as well, and that was important for Sony to invest massively in first-party development and publishing to get an edge on Xbox Game Pass competition. So basically their idea is trying to say like, hey, things like, say, Starfield, they're not necessarily anti-competitive per se, because PlayStation does the same exact thing. But when it comes to this stuff, it also kind of shows that this is going to be their big competition. If they want to have their own big games like a Starfield, that kind of shows that something like PlayStation needs to go and step up their own individual games and RPGs, or just like single-player games like God of War, Last of Us, or whatever it might be, to make sure that they can always either be competing or have a better game. It's kind of like, this is what we want as like actual consumers. We like the competition. We like the idea when PlayStation sits there being like, hey, we are going to make better games because we want to make sure people want to buy our games instead of your games. We want to make sure our quality is better in comparison to yours. Well, Xbox is more pushing for the Game Pass, which is fine, but doesn't really necessarily incentivize innovation and also people, well, making better games, because it's kind of just part of a big subscription plan. Maybe think Netflix, every now and then they have winners, but sometimes they hit niche games that don't really hit too hard. They're kind of whatever, and at the end of the day. So that's kind of why I think kind of seems like people are a little bit skeptical right now on Xbox, or even Jim Ryan himself, because it does seem like they want to just keep on buying out talent and buying out IPs and buying out games rather than trying to go make something homegrown. PlayStation puts a little bit more on the homegrown style, and they kind of build up their studios, and they're a little more on the selective side, versus something, let's say Xbox, which is more of like, let's just go buy Call of Duty. Let's just go and buy Bethesda and see what kind of goes and happens. So it's a little bit of an intriguing topic on this one nonetheless, because Jim Ryan's like, yeah, I don't think it's really that bad. Like, I think it's fun if you want to go through these smart acquisitions, but at the same time, you just cannot buy literally every game company, because Microsoft can do that. Microsoft has so much money that they could literally go buy out PlayStation and Nintendo combined, and they would still almost probably not even feel a dent in their money. Like, Microsoft is just that big as a big boy business. Sony's relatively kind of big, and Nintendo's relatively big, but they got big money to go and deal with this type of stuff. So anyway, they go and say over here that Game Pass is more of a value destructive rather than kind of a money maker. And I would also want to agree with that, because if game companies are basically confirmed on being able to go and just make their money, it doesn't really matter how many people play the game. Like, there's a difference between having a game like a God of War, where it has to be good, has to win awards, has to be a console seller. And I can kind of appreciate Sony on that side at least a little bit, in my opinion. But as well, also kind of the honesty for Jim Ryan. He's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, they're just doing business. The bigger issues are they're trying to buy out companies, which I think he had issues with themselves, or bigger games like, say, Call of Duty, which is a big money revenue maker from PlayStation. Like we saw earlier on today, big leaks. It's like billions of dollars all the time. So very intriguing to see. So Microsoft lawyer said, do you think it'd be better if Microsoft kept Activision games on PlayStation? And Jim Ryan says, yes, I do. Because it wouldn't make sense. They'd have more sales. They have microtransactions. They get a cut off of every sale. Keeps the player base alive. I think it's smart. So do you believe it's Microsoft's best interest to make Activision games available on multiple platforms? No, I don't agree with that. So if you're running Xbox, would you recommend making Call of Duty and other Activision games exclusive? That's a hypothetical question that I don't wish to answer, Jim Ryan. Microsoft, so you don't get to answer. I don't have enough knowledge to answer that question. They're getting like a little spicy in these core hearings, which I'd kind of agree. I feel like in theory it is better to have more games on PlayStation, but at the same time, like, do you really want that? Like, what if they have a big leverage? Like, will you have to charge 40% off every game sales at a 10%? And it just isn't really profitable for PlayStation, or maybe it soaks up too much money from PlayStation, kind of feeds their competitor too much. So one of the big things with that. So Nutella has just answered how he'd like to run the Xbox business, but he's fully aware that exclusives do go and drive console sales, as we mentioned before, and they do also sway these subscription numbers, such as Game Pass. So it does kind of make sense that he doesn't want to do it, but it also kind of showed that Microsoft was actually considering buying Square Enix to even add Final Fantasy into Xbox to as well. So we keep on getting more and more games coming out over time that they apparently had to deal with, and well, they're trying to lock in with it. So very, very intriguing to see that nonetheless. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts. Like, do you guys think that Xbox is going too hard? Do you think PlayStation just doesn't care? Give me your thoughts in comments down below. Make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch room down below if you guys want to follow. We have the Amazon links down below with all the nice little all the links too. And give me your thoughts, and I love you guys.